This is the Gamvar gloss varnish and their varnish brush. In this video, I'm going to review it and demonstrate how I use it to varnish my acrylic and oil paintings. So the reason why you want to varnish a painting is because sometimes the surface sheen is not even. You can see right here, it's a little bit glossier than the rest of this painting, and that's because the paint layer there is thicker, so there's more oil in it. Whereas these are thin washes and it looks a little bit duller. Gloss varnish will also increase the contrast because it'll make the dark areas look darker. And the final reason is that it will protect the painting from dirt and dust. I prefer the gloss varnish, but they also make it in satin and matte. This is the 4.2 fluid ounce container. It looks really small, but this actually can varnish quite a bit of paintings. It can cover 80 square feet, and if my math is correct, that would be 144 8x10 inch paintings. This is the Gamvar varnish brush. I bought the 2-inch or 50mm width brush, but they also make it in 75mm, which is 3 inches. The bristles are synthetic, so there's no animal hair in there, and it's designed to work with the varnish itself. The bristles have a certain amount of stiffness so that you can get an even coat, and you can also spread the varnish out evenly so that it doesn't pool up within the textures of the painting. It's made in Germany, it's got a flat handle, and it has a nice clean look. I'll demonstrate how to varnish an oil painting. This is water mixable oils, and it works on regular oils and water mixable oils. People often wonder how long do you have to wait for the painting to dry before you can varnish it. It depends on how thick the paint is. Gamsol says you can varnish it as soon as the thickest areas of the painting are dry. So this is like the thickest part of the painting. They say if you try to press your fingernail in there gently and it doesn't leave any dents, then it's dry enough. I could feel this is pretty rigid, so I think this is ready. It's been over a month. Gamsol says it can be between 2 weeks and 2 months, depending on the thickness and the conditions that it's drying in. You might want to put down some newsprint to protect your work surface. And I bought this at a thrift shop. You want to use like a dedicated container to pour your varnish into. You don't want to use something like this for food after you're done using it for varnishing. Now, you don't want to pour the varnish directly onto your painting because it'll probably end up being too much. You put a very thin coat on there, so it's better to pour it into a container and then dip your brush into it and apply a super thin coat to it. And this varnish is very thin, so it levels out, and it's got a consistency like water, so you gotta be careful when you pour this out. It's virtually odorless, but I do believe it has Gamsol in there, which is like an odorless thinner. So I'll just dip the brush into the varnish, and then you can wipe off the excess on the rim of the bowl. You want to apply a very thin coat of this. You can apply it in one direction. So I'll go in this direction real quick. You can see the contrast has increased a bit, and the colors look more saturated. And then you can go in the opposite direction, trying to get rid of some of the extra varnish. Just trying to get rid of any brush marks. It seems to level out pretty well by itself. You can see that's fairly smooth. So I'll just set that aside. Here's an acrylic painting of a piece of popcorn. You can see it has like a satin finish, but when I brush this on here, it brings out some of the colors and makes it more contrasty. So it's the same thing. I'll hold it up at an angle so you can kind of see what I'm doing. That's a little too thick. You don't want it too thick because it can dry tacky. So I'll just spread it out in the opposite direction. It's the same thing, you go in one direction, and then you can go in the perpendicular direction to try and get rid of some of the brush strokes. As I said, it does seem to even out pretty well on its own. That looks like it's pretty well covered. You can see there's quite a bit of this varnish left. I'll pour this back into the bottle, and I should be able to varnish a bunch of paintings with it. Here's another acrylic painting. It's on a gesso board from Ampersand. So you can see how the varnish really makes the colors pop. It's easy to miss the edges, so make sure you go over them. Make sure I get the corners, and then I go in the other direction. It helps distribute the varnish and get rid of bristle marks. Looks pretty good. To wash out the brush, all you need is dish soap. I like to use Dawn dish soap, but you can use whatever you want. Once I scrub it out, I rinse it out with water, and then I use a microfiber cloth to dry the bristles. If you don't clean your brush out well enough, it dries pretty rigid. So that's not a problem. What you can actually do is let it soak in the varnish for 5 minutes, and that will dissolve any leftover dried varnish. I let this soak for a few minutes and it's good as new. So I'll varnish this painting of strawberries. This is a good example of how varnish can increase the saturation of a painting. It makes this blue look more vivid. And this is what it looks like when it's dry. This varnish can be removed in case it needs to be cleaned, or if you don't like the look. Give it a try and see what you think. Once you have a painting varnished, the next step is to frame it. This is a floater frame from Ampersand, and they're super easy to use. I have an entire picture framing playlist that you want to check out next. If you found this video useful, please consider subscribing to my channel and liking this video. Thanks for watching.